Hey guys, this is Mrs. Rain. Welcome to this awesome video. In this video, we will react to the worst babysitters of all time. And let's get into this.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at the 10 worst babysitters of all time. We all know the Hollywood stereotype of a bad babysitter. They're irresponsible and don't seem to care too much about who they're babysitting's well-being. Well, these babysitters are all of the above and worse. Get ready for your jaw to drop when you hear about these bad babysitters. Subscribe and hit the bell for top 10s and comment done when you've done this for a shout out at the end of our next video. Coming in at number 10, we have Marquita Birch. We're kicking this list off with one terrible babysitter. In 2012, when William Cunningham was 1 year old, his mother was busy, so got Marquita Birch to babysit. He was being looked after by her for a few weeks. But on the first Friday of Marquita's babysitting, William went missing. At first, Marquita said he'd simply ran off when they were in the park. Everyone began looking while police quizzed Marquita about her story, which had a few inconsistencies. After a while, she confessed the 1-year-old was no longer alive. William was found stuffed inside a closet inside Marquita's cousin's house. She said she'd seen the baby lying at the bottom of the stairs, unresponsive but alive. She then panicked and instead of calling 911, put him in a trash bag and hid him. She was sentenced to 19 years for what she did, but she never explained the entire truth. And to this day, police are still scratching their heads over Marquita Birch. Next up is William Howard Lale. One night, William Howard Lale's girlfriend left her 2 children with him to babysit. Early on in the night, a neighbor saw him run out of the house with one of the kids called Jaden's body. He then ran back inside and moved Jaden's sister Kylie to another neighbor's house. Paramedics rushed to the scene and found scald marks on their arms, legs, and heads. It was too late to save Jaden, but Kylie was okay after treatment. And William was sentenced to life for what he did to both Jaden and Kylie. Next up is Elizabeth Plakowska. In 2012, this woman was looking after her friend's 5-year-old daughter named Olivia, and at the same time, she was also taking care of her own 7-year-old boy named Justin. A little while into the night, she struck Justin 50 times with a knife, taking his life. After that, she struck Olivia with it 100 times, also taking her life. She claimed to police at first that an intruder broke in and she was totally innocent, but then admitted she thought they were possessed by a devil. A while after that, she said she was tired of the evils of modern society. But whatever the truth was, this is one terrible babysitter. Next up is Gabriela Gonzalez. This 25-year-old was taken to the US illegally and soon fell in with a bad crowd. But after 7 years, she managed to move in as a housemaid with a family in Virginia. In 2011, the woman she worked for went to Maryland on business, so Gabriela was put in charge of
It's not Maryland, it's Maryland.
babysitting. The woman's 2-year-old daughter named Kyrie enjoyed being babysat by Gabriela at first, but a few days into the babysitting job, Kyrie developed a bad rash and wouldn't stop crying. That was when Gabriela shook the baby and hit her head on a bathtub. Kyrie passed away at age 2, and as a result of this, Gabriela was sentenced to 20 years behind bars. And Gabriela actually has her own son she's now banned from seeing ever again. Next up is Agnes Wong. In 2007, this woman was hired to look after 16-month-old Hugo Wayne, but during the babysitting, he was taken to a children's hospital by Wong. Why? Well, it was found that Hugo had been swung by his ankles, burned, and bitten. Wong said she only gave out punishment sometimes, and she claims he got the burn marks on his own from an iron. But it gets crazier. Hugo passed away a few days later from injuries. Wong was initially sentenced to life, but this was later reduced to 2 years. Think that's bad? Well, afterwards, she was paid $7,000 to move back to Malaysia, meaning that Wong actually made money from her terrible crime. Next up is Michael Plumador. Alana Lemon and her 2 sisters' mother and father weren't in one night. Their mother wasn't feeling well, and their father worked nights, so they brought in Michael to babysit. It was fine at first, but then Alana went missing. Michael said he assumed she went off for a walk, but she never came back. She was missing until Christmas, and that's when the FBI got involved. They soon found out Michael had hit her in the head and caused her to lose her life. He then froze her body in a freezer for unknown reasons. And for this bizarre, unexplained crime, Michael was given life in jail without parole.
Good.
Next up is David McGreevy. This man's babysitting earned him the nickname the Monster of Worcester. David had been homeless for a while, so he began staying with his old friend Clive and his family. David would cook meals and babysit in exchange for staying there. But after a night of heavy drinking, David returned to the house to watch the 3 kids, while Clive and his wife went out for the night. But David soon became enraged and took the life of all 3 kids. He then put their bodies on display on a pointed picket fence for all the neighbors to see. He was arrested at 3 a.m. the next morning and initially denied any wrongdoing. A jury, however, soon found him guilty and he was sentenced to 40 years imprisonment. He was released when he hit 60 and begged the judge to keep his identity private. The judge agreed, but then changed his mind, and now wherever David goes, his past haunts him. Next up is Carl McClooney. This guy was just 15 when he was hired to look after a 5-year-old named Demi. He was a family friend, and Demi's mum simply wanted to run some errands, including buying Carl a birthday card. Carl and Demi went to the park, but when they got back home, things went crazy. Carl began biting and hurting Demi, and he even shaved Demi's head. Demi's mum came back to find Carl watching TV and her daughter not alive. A psychologist said Carl went crazy after a bizarre home life. But despite this, Carl was sentenced to 20 years behind bars, but may be released sooner. Next up is Yoselin Ortega. This 50-year-old woman was hired by Marina Crime to take care of her 3 children. Marina took one of her kids to a swimming lesson, but when she returned, she found the other 2 had been stabbed in the bathtub. Yoselin then tried to do the same thing to herself while Marina called an ambulance for her kids. The ambulance arrived and surprisingly saved Yoselin, but couldn't save the kids. And this means that Yoselin has to serve her time, as she was sentenced to life in prison. Coming up next is Frederick Mitchell. In 2013, this 21-year-old from Cincinnati was babysitting the son of one of his housemates named Elliot, who was 6. It's not known exactly what went down, but at some point in the day, Frederick threw Elliot into a wall headfirst, making a giant hole. Elliot was taken to hospital, but passed away days later. Frederick claims he suffers from blackouts and has no recollection of what happened. He says he's perfectly innocent, but we're not so sure. He was charged with $1 million bond, and he's now spending the rest of his life in prison despite his blackout claims. His mother actually testified, saying he wasn't lying about the blackouts and that he was innocent. He may suffer from blackouts, but one thing this man is not is innocent. Check out the poll in the top right corner and you can vote.
Dang, these are the worst babysitters, alright? Don't even want Sorry guys, it's literally like 8 o'clock in the morning right now. I have to be at work in like 4 hours, so yay! So I guess that would be it for this video. If you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe, don't forget to like, and yeah. Do all of it. Love you guys. Goodbye.